Hey, what's going on, Rose? What's going on, Patsy? So a lot of people heard of Tulsa, Oklahoma, but me, I have never heard of Ocoee. So anyway, the situation with Ocoee was a lot of blacks in that town was trying to vote. So they had an election, and the election was actually the running was actually going down in Orlando between two electives. So it was some blacks that were trying to vote. Hey, how you doing? Yeah, it's by Orlando and Kissimmee, definitely. It's like 25 to 30 minutes away from Kissimmee. Because the county it's in Orange County. And I keep telling everybody, right now today, Orange County has the population of 46% to 42% whites and unblacks and unhispanics. And they have the population of 21 to 20% blacks. So anyway, they always had a population, it was always dominated by the white culture in Orange County. It always been. Right now today, it's like prejudice still goes on, but it's not as massive as it was in 1920. But when you go further north in Florida, that's when you face a lot of racism, even in the courts. When it's time to go to court, if your opposition is white, 9 out of 10, they going to grant the white person instead of you. Because Trayvon Martin was actually 20-something minutes away, and he was in like downtown part of Orlando. And it's like right there, like their judicial system is predominantly white. So 9 out of 10, if you do something faulty, 9 out of 10, if you're a Caucasian person, you're likely to get off. Because, mind you, these are the family members of people that believed in putting things in order by putting blacks in their place. They always, when they came together, a lot of them was Klansmen. A lot of them were KKK. A lot of them people was unaware that these people were Klansmen. But one day when the Klansmen had their rally and they came out to do their little walk or they march, some of them came without the mask on their face. So a lot of these blacks knew they was working around these people, giving these people business. But what the problem was with Ocoee, Florida, a lot of those black people were successful. They were well off. They had money. They bought their own homes. They had their own businesses. So it was a lot of tension back then in the South, especially when whites saw blacks actually providing for themselves and not needing any help, dressing well. It was almost like a Tulsa, when Tulsa was running their own Black Wall Street. But this wasn't Wall Street. It still was the South. But these people were successful. These people were, riding, car, their own, not vehicles, but like had their own stock, whether it was horses, cows, successful farmers or whatever. So it was two men that these white people were after. One of them name was Perry. One name was Mose Norman, and the other one name was Julius July Perry. Julius July Perry was hung, but I'm gonna tell you how this happened with Julius July Perry. So when people were trying to vote and they was walking over there to the place where they had to vote and everything, they were getting turned away. A lot of them was being lied to, saying they didn't pay their poll tax, which wasn't true. Because a lot of successful blacks that lived in Ocoee was actually providing funds to take care of the poll taxes for people that couldn't afford it. So they were paying for people that couldn't afford it in the community because it was a lot of prestigious blacks, whether they were farmers, whether they were preachers, whether they were business owners in a community. These people were making sure that blacks were able to vote in Ocoee. So this one dude named Mose Norm, he went down to the townhouse to go vote. So when he went down there, they turned him away and they said, "No, you can't vote because you didn't pay your poll taxes," which wasn't true. That was a lie. They just didn't want blacks voting because they called us subhuman back then. We wasn't considered human in their eyes. We were considered subhuman, like we were partial human. So anyway, Mose Norm went back to his home and he came back with a gun. So he went and threatened the people at the polls saying, y'all gonna let me vote. So the white men, they tallied up and they got the gun from his hand and they beat him up. So when they beat him up, he ran to Julius July Perry house. So when he got to Julius July Perry house, he was telling them what happened or whatever. So they start rallying up and trying to get blacks to vote in the community, telling them not to be afraid to vote. And then they reached out to this judge in Orlando, and they traveled and sat down with this judge in Orlando. So the white judge say, do y'all know the name of the people that turned y'all away from voting? Because they had documents proving that they was up to date with their poll taxes and everything. So the judge was like, you got to get the name of the people that's not allowing you to vote or whatever. So when they came back, they were discussing it with the people, but they had a snake. They had a snake in the camp, and it always be one. Remember when they did like slavery, it was always one black person that was just, always the person that went back and told master whatever would happen. So it was this dude named Burley Jones. Burley Jones was a free slave. He was free. All of them was free. But Burley Jones went back to his old master, the man who used to own him, so he could separate himself from everybody else. So if anything break out, they wouldn't fuck with Burley. Burley was a snitch. He turned on all the black folks in that town to single himself out. So if something go wrong, he won't get in trouble. So he went to his ex owner and said, "Hey, the blacks are plotting on y'all to attack the whites," and that's not true. He went and spread a lie. He went and told a false rumor that got these people in a tight. A lot of people thought the whites was attacking the people in Ocoee, Florida because of the voting situation. No, it wasn't for the voting situation. It's because Burley Jones went back and started a false rumor saying that the blacks was getting ready to try to overpower the white community in Ocoee. So when he got wind of that, he got together with all the the white members of that community, and then they went and recruited other whites from Orlando, and they sat down in a meeting. So the population of whites in that community at the time was like at 500 people. So once they recruited these white folks from out of Orlando, they was at 1,100 standing. It was like, that's how many of them came to that town. It was like overpopulated. And at the time, it was like 250 something blacks in that community. So just imagine 1,000 and something whites coming in to terrorize a community that only exists of 200 and something blacks. So once they got together, they said, "Oh, we finna put this. We gonna create order. We coming to Ocoee to create order." So they came and they went to homes. They went to setting homes on fire. They raided. They rushed Julius July Perry house. Julius July Perry them had two white men in the house. The two white men in their house, they were like, people that took on like enforcement, because they was there to support the cause of black people being able to vote. So they were sitting down with Perry. They would come down and sit with the elite. So when all the white people came to the black community, they shot up Julius July Perry house. But the two white men was in the house. So it was Julius July Perry, his wife, his daughter Caretha, and the two white men. They killed those two white men in his house. They killed him. Killed both of them. They Julius got shot. He got hit, but he didn't die. His daughter Caretha got hit. She didn't die. The mother didn't get hit. So the mama was screaming. The mama was saying, the mother was screaming. The mama was like, "Oh, my baby, my baby, my baby. They done shot my baby, my baby, the baby." But Caretha was saying, "Oh, mama, don't worry about me. I'm okay. Let's crawl out the back. Just don't run. Just don't run. Let's crawl out in the back." So they got away through the back of the house. While they was shooting up the house, they got away. So what they did was, after they killed the white men, they planted the death of the white men on the blacks in the community. So when they said that the blacks in the community did it, that's what made all these people tally up from Orlando that said we got to bring order back into the town because the blacks are getting out of line. So they made it seem like it was just a even war thing with blacks and whites, but it really was an attack on a black community that did them no wrong. So make a long story short, so they escaped through the back. Some of these families got away, and they hid in the swamps. Because these whites was even looking for them in the swamps. They was ducked off in the swamps. And these white folks, it's like this one older man, he said it seemed like they was rabbit hunting. Like the way they was looking for us, like they was hunting for rabbits. So he said we stayed quiet. Some of us laid duck down in the mud, whatever the case may be. But when the white people cleared it, they went to still traveling. And you know the swamps were full of alligators, all kind of stuff in Florida. So yeah. So after that, they took Perry. They took Julius Perry. They locked him up and they put him in jail. And once all the massacre was over and they had them burnt down houses, they burnt down 2 churches, they burnt down a frat house, like a fraternal house, and they burnt down like over like 50 homes or something like that. So they took Julius July Perry out of the jail and they took him to Orlando and they strung him up on a light pole to send out the messages to the blacks in the community. This is what's gonna happen to you if y'all get out of line. So they strung him up and they hung him, they lynched him, and then they shot him up. They emptied over 600 rounds in him. So anyway, the dude, Mose Norman, the one who went down there to vote, that had the handgun, he got away. He got away and he ended up going to this preacher house that he had met that was, fellowshipping with them where they go to each other town, and he had them fellowship with the church there in Ocoee. So he ended up going to their house and he stayed ducked off, and he stayed at their house and laid low because they were looking for him to lynch him too. They was really looking for 2 assailants, but they killed a lot of blacks. They killed between 30 to 80 blacks, and they don't have the definite proximate number. But when they wrote it in the newspaper, they wrote it as though it was a black and white war, and it wasn't. It was a white lynch mob that came out and destroyed a black community off of a lie from a black man. This black man name is Burley Jones that started this whole war. Now, they were already up against a lot that was going on, and they're trying to vote, trying to live, as a human being in a civilization amongst people that didn't see them as human, that saw them as subhuman. And here it is, one lie. And then the reason why the community believed it, because it was their own kind. It was their own kind. Our own kind. I can't even say they. Our own kind. It was our own kind that went and snitched and started a lie and a rumor that made these people go and burn down this town. Now, mind you, it has changed a lot nowadays. Now, it's a lot of blacks that go to school. I see a lot of population of blacks, but the numbers are still high with the whites in that community. And then there's a lot of blacks that's moving in the community, but the numbers are low because it's 46 to 42% whites, and it's 21 to 20 blacks that live right now in Orange County in Ocoee, Florida. The schools are shared. They're mixed schools or whatever, but when I look at the sports, I see a lot of blacks, outnumbering the people that's in sports, whatever. So it's a massive number of blacks in those schools. But yeah, and to make a long story short, so there was several different big names of the families that they have family right now living there, living right now today. Like Caretha Perry. Caretha Perry is the daughter that got shot with Julius July Perry in his home. When she, at the age of 80, she told her story, and she said, I would never go to Ocoee, Florida again. Right now, today, she's an older woman. This happened in 1920. So whenever they interviewed her, I don't know if they interviewed her the early 2000s when she made this statement, but she say Ocoee, Florida left her with a bad taste in her mouth to where she'll never go. And she showed when she got shot. It's a picture of her online. She doing like this. She taking her finger and she's pointing where she got shot at. You can look it up. I screenshot a lot of those photos. But it's a lot of the family right now living today. And do you know that a lot of people that live in Ocoee, Florida are unaware that this transpired, that this massacre took place in that town? A lot of them still don't know. A lot of them don't know the history because, like I said, when you go to school, a lot of things are thrown up under the rug, and a lot of people don't like to discuss these things that took place. They try to erase history because it'll make their ancestors look inhumane. Just like they did Tulsa, Oklahoma. They hid the fact that here it is, this white woman named Sarah that was manually operating an elevator, and this shoe shine boy that would normally go to a bathroom downstairs to the colored bathroom outside of the building. It was out of service. He had to get on the elevator and ride this elevator to use another bathroom while this bathroom was out of service. And when you manually operate in the elevator, you know, sometimes it tilt and shake. So the elevator ended up like tilting. And so the shoe shine guy, when it tilted, he kind of fell on Sarah. Sarah went and lied and said that he essayed her. He touched her inappropriately. So they went to looking for this shoe shine guy to lynch him or whatever. So the black people that lived in Tulsa ended up having a war with the white folks. They had a shootout. A lot of people don't tell you that. They just tell you that the whites just went into Tulsa and just killed a bunch of blacks. No, that's not how it went down. They really had a shootout. The blacks and the whites was really shooting at each other. But what it was, the blacks slept on it. The blacks started, the fight was over with, and they went back living their everyday life in their homes. And that's when the whites had ended up getting together with the Air Force, the people in the Army. They connected in that town because a lot of them was really mad that the black money wasn't patronizing their white businesses. They had their own library. They had their own fire department. They had their own convenience stores. They had their own schools. They had their own hospital. They had their own transportation company. All these black people were successful, and they was sharing their wealth amongst their community. And a lot of whites used to climb up on this like mountain and just watch them operate, like stare at them and look at them and be like, look at these uppity niggas, just staring at them. So all it took was one faultiness that happened in that town, and that lady Sarah lied on that shoe shine man and said that shoe shine man made advances at her and touched her inappropriately, and they went looking for him, and they decided that it was going to burn that town down. So after several whites were killed during this shootout, several blacks was killed during the shootout. So the blacks went back living their regular life thinking it was over with. The whites came into that town, shot them up. This one black man who fought in the war, he came out in his uniform saying, I fought for us. They shot him right in the middle of the street. They ain't care about him wearing no uniform. A lot of people hid up under the bed. A lot of people escaped through the back of their house. These people went into their home. The white women was going in, stealing the silverware out of these black people home, like stealing everything, like little coffee cups, dishes, the linen off their bed, just taking all their stuff after just killing these people. And then they were piling these bodies up in like this little ditch. It looked like a little mine, you know, like a bomb mine. The bodies, they were just throwing the bodies in there. After they killed these people, they were piling these people up. And they was really looking for this black lady that did the whole write-up on what was going on in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Because she would travel back and forth from her town, her family city to Tulsa. But then she heard they were looking for her to lynch her. So she got word that they was trying to kill her because she would write a tabloid to where other people in other states would know what was going on in this town, and they didn't like the fact that their business was getting out to other places that, you know, this was going on, because they were so used to spinning the narrative in their own newspapers. Here it is, this woman was a journalist, so she was doing her own newspaper. But yeah, I just wanted to share that story right there on Ocoee, Florida. If y'all never heard of it, I want y'all to go look it up, because I thought the story was really interesting. I was today years old when I found out about it. So I say I just want to share this story right here, because they were killing women, they were killing children, and then some of them, they was giving them a heads up, you got to go. So a lot of them had to leave their homes behind in Ocoee, Florida. And those houses were really, really big homes, and they were worth so much money because these people made so much money, but they had to sell it for cheap. So a lot of these white people were getting these black people homes as they own, that they work hard for dirt cheap. They lands for dirt cheap. They was getting it for cheap because they was being forced out of the town. Yeah, they were being forced out of town. So after that incident happened, it was 2% black still there, 2% black, and like over 80%, 90% white. But it was 2% black. But right now today it's 46 to 42%, and whites is whites is 46%, 42%, and blacks is like 20% blacks that live there right now today. They got photos up and stuff like that. Very informative. Listen, it just grasped my attention. If you just see the pictures, like the pictures, it's like it became a sundown town. After that massacre, that city itself became a sundown town. So if you was caught after the sun went down there, it was a lynching going on there. And a lot of the KKK members resided there. Yeah. Like the head people too. Like the Grand Dragons and all that. And then they would do these little marches and stuff. And they would tally up and they would march in Daytona Beach, Florida. All the little north parts of Florida. And these people right now was their judicial system right now. But did you know that the whole Klansmen was the police department in Ocoee, Florida? The whole entire Klansmen in 1920 was the police department in Ocoee, Florida. So do you imagine how many of their family members that became officials right after them, following the footsteps of their ancestors, knowing the stories of what they did, and pretty much they probably shared it at the dinner table, shared it in their home, spent a narrative about black people, you know, creating this false narrative about us, and it was passed down to generations. Because listen, if you sit down with a bunch of whites, they probably will tell you how their family used to talk about us like a dog. So at the end of the day, in that county alone, Orange County, when they ran these people out, so you could just imagine what the dinner table stories was, you know, like about us. But yeah, so that's why I say, like, when you hear stories like Trayvon Martin not getting justice after Zimmerman slain this young man just from coming from a convenience store buying a Skittle and an Arizona tea, and take his life and not be held accountable. These are the communities right now of their children. The children of the savages that attacked Ocoee, Florida. These is like, because I think where Trayvon Martin, he was like 20 minutes, 25 minutes away. He was like downtown Orlando. All these are areas together. And these are the people that tallied up with Ocoee when they, you know, burnt these homes, burnt these buildings, burnt 2 churches, and made these people flee their own homes or whatever. But yeah, you can only imagine the mindset being brought up in a family with the mindset to do something like this. Because hate becomes traditional. It's taught. It's not something that you are born with automatically, like, hey, I hate people. No, somebody has to break the curse. Somebody has to break the cycle. And lately, when we watch online, we see a lot of people breaking the curse. We see a lot of whites spreading awareness that that's how they keep us divided as a people, by creating racism. Racism was to create division so that the political parties can spin a narrative and make things work for them in the political party. So the rich stay rich and the poor stay poor. Because you got poor black folks, you got poor white folks, you got rich white folks, you got rich black folks. And it's always been the rich against the poor. It has never been the blacks against the white. But the narrative that was spent and the venom that was put out in society was to keep us divided and keep us apart instead of putting us together. It was designed to keep us at odds with this narrative of negative thoughts about each party. So yeah, that's what it was. And I'm through, y'all. I just want to share that. Peace out.